I think I broke it. I tried to move it and it came apart. Sorry. Thanks for coming, folks. Tonight we've got a program that should run about an hour and 15 minutes or an hour and 15 minutes. If it doesn't, just pretend that that's the way it was supposed to go. But we've got a lot of material to cover with light and color, and we're going to talk fast. You listen as fast as you can. Some interesting video clips along the way as well. One announcement before we start. We've got a couple of DVDs we're mentioning tonight very briefly. This one, Confronting Evolution. Those of you that were here this morning know that I used to be sympathetic to that position, but I've changed my mind since. The new data has been coming out since 1955 regarding information theory. Where does the information come from to do these interesting things in creation? But this one has 4 sections. It's 2 hours long. It's only $5. 2 hours long, 4 sections on the Garden of Eden, dinosaurs in the Bible, statements in textbooks that can be contradicted today with new data, and something else I don't remember, but that's a surprise for you. This one, Exodus Revealed, our film team, I consult with this film team, and they were the first ones given permission by the Egyptian government to go down to the bottom of the Red Sea and take pictures of the junk pile down there. It's a junkyard of chariot wheels, axles, spearheads, a golden chariot wheel. That's one of the priests would have used that. It's made of electrum coated on wood, so the wood is decayed away, but the thin electrum, as thin as saran wrap, so you can't touch it, it'll fall apart. They've got pictures of that kind of stuff, and it's a mile deep on either side of this causeway that goes across the Red Sea, the Gulf of Aqaba, the right-hand arm of the Red Sea. And a wind would blow across that and dry that, and a couple of million people could cross that, no problem. It's got about an 8% slope, which is adequate. No other place along that shore has a slope that gradual for women and children and, the invalids and such to get down. Exodus Real. Be sure, if you do pick this up, be sure you watch the director's cut. There are 2 versions on here. One is for public television, which is a shorter version, and then the director's cut, which has all the interviews and the people that helped us research that. Okay? Now, this gear's been bouncing over railroad track. Oh, by the way, the table is between the doorways back there on that other room. My wife Terry will help you handle that. I think I got most things fixed. The problem with this gear, it's about almost a ton of equipment, and we unload it and load it every week for, this was built in '78. This is from the missile silos. I've kept the Air Force, honoring the Air Force with this one right here. That says launch hold. Do not flick. Oh, no, do not. Goodbye, bad guys. Do not flick that button. So we used it with military hardware and space hardware. So it looks clunky, but it's like the old Western electric telephones. Those clunky old things, they worked and worked and worked and worked until the digital age came along. So we built it with good stuff so it won't have to repair it all the time, but it does repair. We hit potholes and railroad tracks, and things don't always work like they're supposed to. So if something doesn't work, just pretend it's part of the program and we'll go on to the next section. Now, I think I got this first thing working, I think. Let me see if we can demonstrate. Oh, great. That's supposed to work. Whoa! Oh my, that lady swallowed her tongue right there and just rubbing her throat. No, I did that on purpose. That's over 1 million volts, and one of these nights I've been telling, I'm going to stand on that thing and light a board on fire to show you that there's a lot of amperage going through this coil. This is what's called an Alden resonator, a parallel tuned resonant tank circuit. This is not static electricity, this is not a Tesla coil, and if somebody that you talk to that's an electrical engineer might say, yeah, big deal, lots of volts but no amps. That's not the case. Not the case. This is it's dangerous. We try to do it right. We do it right. We don't try, because it ruin your whole day otherwise. But just imagine me standing up on that thing in the dark on purpose, calling out, fire! Boy, that sounds it was a little smoother this afternoon. It sounds a little rough. Must be the weather. So let's pray for lousy weather, okay? You guys will get an interesting program. But let me roll that thing out of the way here, and I'll explain how this is done. You know, there's no tricks, as I mentioned before, so let's keep that in mind. What I want to do this evening is, you know, make a supposition here. Suppose you had created a universe, and you wanted to create a group of people to whom you could relate. And you wanted to introduce yourself to your creation and the rest of creation by illustrating some of your character. How would you demonstrate mercy, forgiveness, patience, love? How would you demonstrate that if you were all alone there in the Godhead and the Trinity was just there? Perfect, in perfect union, ultimate power, everything. Well, you could create a group of beings that were after your image, that were sort of like you. Intellect, emotion, and will, and they would have the capacity to respond to your love, or to turn their back and run away and hate you. All right? That's the chance you would take. Now, how would you communicate to that creation? I mean, you know, intelligent people tell us that God knows everything. We don't know everything. We're not mind readers. So a creator would have to use something that we understand to communicate to us, and we would, you know, understand words. So consequently in the Bible you have Jesus. Jesus claims to be the bread of life. We need bread to stay alive physically. Maybe we need his word to stay alive spiritually. He said he was the water of life. Same thing, you know, we need water to stay alive. Our bodies are mostly water anyway. Water is a good cleansing agent, okay? Maybe he made that kind of a comparison to show what his character would do for his children. He also said he was the light of the world. Now, he didn't expect us to be some nut and try to find him inside of the filament of light bulbs. Of course not. But if we want to understand more about his character, how about if we investigate light to see why he would have said that and why he would have made that kind of a comparison? Now, we know we need light to see things. Obviously, we're living in the darkness. You turn on lights and you can see where you're going. Makes sense? Wouldn't it be interesting if you could actually create darkness? Now, nobody can, because it doesn't work that way. Darkness is the absence of light. In science, there's something called parity. A hot, cold, heavy, light, light, dark, all right? Sweet, sour, you know, things like that. If there were not a group of beings in existence, then good and evil would only be an intellectual concept. And evil would be what's called an ontological parasite. It's something that exists in concept along with the good, but it has no effect on anybody because there's no agent through which it can operate. And then when God created this realm of angelic beings, now he had a vehicle through which that could operate if one of those beings rebelled. And we know about Lucifer, the shining one. He was called the anointed cherub. The cherubim are the ones that are guarding God's throne for its holiness. And he was the anointed cherub that was directing the worship of the angels, the angelic realm, to the Creator. And personally, I think, since there are so many different levels of angels, principalities, thrones, dominions, powers, archangels, all these different levels, and Lucifer was the top dude, the most brilliant, the most powerful, the most beautiful creature that God ever created. And it said in the day that he was created, the music was created within him, his garment, his effulgence, this light coming from him, all was created in the day he was made. And back in the Old Testament, in Ezekiel, it says that he sealed up a pattern. That word for sealing in the Hebrew is when you are making a mold, a statue of something, of bronze. And you would create the mold for that, and then you would pour in the molten metal, and then in order to get your creation out of the mold, you would actually smash the mold. You would seal up the pattern. So we know that Satan is a one-of-a-kind creature, all right? Even Michael the archangel, the second most powerful creature that God created, and that's the only one we know that's an archangel. There might be others, we don't know about him. When he was fighting with Satan over Moses' body, the Bible says he didn't even dare give a railing accusation against Satan. All he said was, "The Lord rebuke you." Left it up to the Lord. So this being directing the worship of the universe, it probably went to his head because he saw all these other levels of angels, and I think Lucifer was the guy that invented evolution. Thinking, I'm the top guy. Look at all those losers down there. I'm the top guy, but there's somebody ahead of me. And someday I will be like the Most High God. And as soon as that thought came into his mind, God says, iniquity was found in you, and he cast him out. And he messed up. But he was so bright and clever, a third of God's angels fell with him, thinking that this guy's going to win the battle. So he must have been a very, very powerful, and still is, a very powerful, but he's on a short chain. He can only do so much within God's allowance. So we understand words, and God communicates to us through words. And light is one of those. The Lord is not this kind of light. In fact, this kind of light is, humans generate this stuff. That light is actually blinking on or off 120 times every second. We look at it, it looks like it's on all the time, but I key in a code to the computer to turn them on and off. But that's not what I'm talking about. Those things are blinking on and off right now as you look at them. We don't notice it. It's powered with 60 hertz AC current. Vibrates in the wire back and forth. Every time it stops to turn around and go the other way, of course, that filament cools down a bit. And we have something called the persistence of vision in the eye. Your eye is chemically operated, so it coasts to a stop. So when you see a flash of light, your brain thinks the lights are on for a long time, about 1/7 of a second. It takes that long for those chemicals to be used up. So if your brain thinks the lights are on for about 1/7 of a second, if you can do something faster than 1/7 of a second, you could have something appear right out of thin air. And we're going to look at that tomorrow. I've got a very interesting video clip of an illusionist. They call them prestidigitationists. A presto, fast fingers, digits, fast-fingered artist is a prestidigitationist or an illusionist or a magician. This guy can pull birds out of thin air. Just amazing. We'll see that tomorrow. These eyes, though, they know that you can fool the eyes. So light can be illuminating our hearts and our minds, as it were, but we miss a lot of things because of that persistence of vision, like these lights. In fact, I can show you that they're not blinking, or that they really are blinking on and off. I have a lot of different kinds of equipment up here. One piece of equipment, sometimes I carry it with me, sometimes I don't. I have a glass eye. Now, these days, with modern technology, medicine and such, they can hook the muscles of your eye up to this glass eye. So when you look like that, it turns. When you look like that, it turns the other way. Glass eyes are pretty cool. Now, which of you think that this is my glass eye? Anybody? Any guesses? Okay, 1, 2. How about this one? You think that's the one? Okay. Well, you're both wrong. It's over here in this thing. There's my glass eye. It's a silicon solar cell. I'm just yanking your chains. That is so thin. It's as thin as a sheet of paper. I had it mounted on a metal plate. And, usually the babies are supposed to cry when they set off the sparks. Missed that one. Okay, anyway, this is a glass eye. Light, acting like particles, can knock off the electrons on that solar cell. Those little thin wires plated on the front of your solar cell, they collect those electrons, and that's a current. It just acts just like a battery when the light's shining on it. And you can create electricity. Well, not really create it, but you generate it and amplify it, and we can do things with it. For example, here's another bulb that's wired into the same circuit as this one, right? It's got a clear envelope so you can see the filament. I want you to be able to see that filament. That filament is blinking on and off 120 times every second because we're powering this with alternating current, 60-cycle alternating current. So the top part of the sine wave heats it up, cools off. Heats up with the negative sine wave, cools off. Heats up, cools off, all right? But we can't see it doing that because of that persistence of vision. It has to do with the alpha and the beta rhodopsin complexes back in the retina. That's why you should eat carrots. Vitamin A helps build the visual purple in your eye to help you see better in the dark and all that. That's a health food recommendation. Okay, let's turn up the gain on this thing right here. You'll hear some residual humming. All right? A photocell can see that blinking on and off, generated back into electricity, oscillating, pulsing that at 120 cycles, which happens to be B below middle C. Pretty close anyway. I think it's 124, but 120 is close. Okay? Alternating current. What about this stuff? What do we call this in a flashlight? Anybody? DC, direct current, okay? There's a constant supply of current going through the bulb. It goes in the same direction all the time. But it heats up the filament, and the light looks the same. Light's light. All right? Wouldn't it be cool if you could turn on a thing like this, and darkness would just kind of flow out into the room? You see, you can't do that, because that's the absence of light. Now, this is on all the time. I can hold it up here to the photocell. You don't hear anything. We're generating the voltage level from the electrons, but I can alternate it with my finger or two fingers. Okay? 4 fingers. Used to be able to do it with 6 fingers, but I lost one in accident, you know. Can't do it anymore. But you run out of fingers, you can use something like an ordinary comb. I see the puzzled look on the young people. This is an old-fashioned thing you're so... Nobody's using these anymore. Some of us don't even need them anymore either. But anyway, what I'm going to do, I'm going to saw the light up into little pieces with a comb, just like this. Here we go. Right? Little light sawdust there. Got another. Was that baby crying? I hope. Was it hope? I hope. Nuts. All right. These teeth in the comb broke up the beam of light, and it was flashing, and we could pulse that light and knock those electrons off. But this is no ordinary comb. Up here at the top, tenor teeth. Down at the bottom, bass teeth. Right up at the top, little girl. Down here, little boy. Very old little boy. Went through puberty 12 or 13 times. Once is bad enough. You guys know what I'm talking about. Oh, anyway, if we do this carefully, I can make the high notes and low notes. I could play you a tune on the comb with a flashlight. Don't laugh. You want me to do it? No. I can't do it. But I've got something to help me out. This is a buffer motor that I've got this disc connected to, and then spin that thing around. I've cut a bunch of holes in this thing, just the right size to let the light peek through. Okay? Now, for me, I have the white spots on the back, so I can see where the holes are. So I can just hold this light in front of those lines of white and make different sounds. And if this thing goes faster, if it spins faster, what's going to happen to the pitch of those pulses? Should go higher, right? Let's try it and see. Okay. Now, there are more holes, and they're moving faster with linear speed out here than they are in the center. I've only got 2 holes in the center, and I don't know how many out there. So, Okay. That's a salute to our military. I was given a commission as light colonel in Special Forces Airborne, it's 92nd Airborne. Any Army guys here tonight? Good for you. Hooah! Okay. Now, let's do something with a flashlight. There it goes. You can barely see this. Let me turn the lights off. You can barely see that, right? These are brand new batteries in this thing. But I padded it down with a resistor. I've got a microphone connected at the back, and then the energy is going to go through the microphone, the sound energy, change to electrical energy as the carbon crystals compress or get loose. If they're compressed, they allow more current to go through. It's like a variable resistor, okay? So by talking into the microphone, I can modulate the light here by changing it in some way. We're going to be changing the amplitude, the brightness, okay? Now, by talking this right now, you can't see any intelligence on that beam. You probably don't see any intelligence behind the microphone either. But anyway, we're not talking about that. But this light is blinking on and off real fast. Now, let me line it up with a solar cell and see what we see. We're about here. Testing, 1, 2, 3. You are now listening to a talking flashlight. The amazing wonders of science. You know, test 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, somebody says, that was crummy sound. Thank you. Too late, forget it, too late. So, if we want to transmit complex data, all right? What you want to do is to be able to have a wider bandwidth. You want to be able to transmit high frequency stuff, complex data, for example. Now, we can't do that with a flashlight. There's something called, the frequency response is very poor due to thermal lag. It just takes too long for the filament to cool down and heat up again. So you can only transmit real low frequency notes. That's why it sounded kind of muddy. But what I've done over here, I butchered up a Xerox copy machine one time and made a laser out of it. Only this is a laser communicator. See that red spot on the wall over there? See it? Now I have a magnifying, well, it's not really magnifying, it's a diffusion lens on the front of that laser. And that diffusion lens is going to move the beam and spread it out just a little bit. Let me show you the difference between that beam and another beam. Okay? That's the size of the spot if I had not put that lens in front of it. But I wanted that spot to fill my solar cell over there. Now this is one particular, 632 nanometers. That's the frequency of light here. I have another laser pointer. Your eye is more sensitive to the yellowish green color. So if you want to have a nice bright laser pointer, you should have, not the red ones, you should have this color. See? Same power level, 5 milliwatts, but look at the difference. Okay? So most people that give lectures now use the green spot, green beams. Okay? Now, that beam is going over there. It's diffuse. And let me show you the difference between laser light and a flashlight. Okay, I'll put the spot up on the screen, and I'll stand the same distance back using this flashlight. Look at that. That bright spot is the filament of the light bulb. When it gets to the screen, it's a couple of feet across. But look at all the wasted light up in the ceiling. I'm not even pointing at the ceiling, but there's light up there. And off to the side, in the front of the stage, and on the side wall there. Ordinary light diffuses once it leaves the source. But laser light is what they call coherent light, and it just all stays nice and lined up. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to aim that laser, let's turn that light off again. I'm going to aim this laser at the photoreceptor right there. Now, we're generating a voltage level on that thing, but we're not alternating the beam. But what I can do is just cut the beam off with my finger back here. Okay? In fact, how many of you know Morse code out there? Anybody know Morse code? when I did my ham radio license, I had to learn Morse code. And so I'm going to send you a message. Here's a message. There'll be 2 letters. Okay? So if you're ever running a Morse code thing and you hear this, those are 2 letters, the letter C and the letter Q. CQ, I'm seeking you, I'm seeking you. Somebody talk to me. CQ, 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 and then you give your sign. N6 double DDB, double dog bite, my mentor cursing me, but okay. You can punch a signal through a noisy environment with Morse code, whereas you cannot make communication with voice very well. So we could aim something at the moon, for example, and signal the moon. Let's pull this off and put it on the wall over there. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to modulate that spot. Modulate the power supply of the laser beam. First, I got to be able to see the right button to push. Okay, here it is. I got a player up here. We'll turn it on. Now, we don't hear anything from that spot because these eyes can't even recognize that that light's flashing, I don't know, 1,000 times a second. But let's line it up with a solar cell right about here and see what we... Oh, I'm not allowed to dance here, sorry. I danced so bad the music turned off. Let me find out where that spot went. Where is it? Where is it? Oh, there it is. Okay. I'm sending music across the room on a laser beam. Now, if I stand right here, this just demonstrates another physical property of light. Light will not pass through the dense medium, see? Unless you turn like this, but you got to keep your hand off your ear. Right? Really, that's how it works, you know. Anyway, let's turn that off in case somebody doesn't like marches. Now, 2 things I want you to understand. Number 1, you do not have to understand something to use it. Okay? You don't have to understand something to use it. But secondly, you must meet the proper conditions. Now, maybe some of you engineer geeks out there, you can explain exactly how we electronically excited the gases in that tube. There's helium and neon in there. The helium acts as kind of a quenching agent for the no oscillations. The neon is what we want to see. That gives us that orange color. Downtown, you've got neon signs. Okay, you can use that same kind of gas to make a laser if you have it right. We've got Brewster windows in this thing on either end of the glass tube. This is called a continuous wave laser. It's on all the time. It's not pulsed. Otherwise, it would sound like a machine gun, you know, the pulses of light coming out of there. The back Brewster window is 100% reflective. The front one's only 90% reflective, so 10% of the energy leaks through the front mirror, and that's where your laser beam goes. But that energy is precisely in phase with the energy that the electrons need to get kicked up to a higher orbit. So each of those gases has some loose electrons in the outer orbital shell, and they're bumped up. The ones underneath are bumped up to a higher orbit, but they cascade back to the original shell and release a quanta of light, a quanta of energy, in this case at 632 nanometers. That wavefront moves through the gas, and it's all marching in perfect column. Everybody's marching together. It's in phase. It hits the front window, 90%, bounces back and forth, generating and amplifying the light. Laser, light amplification by the stimulated emission of radiation. That's what that stands for. It's an acronym. Okay? And that beam comes out. We pump about 2,500 volts into that to get it started. Hits the laser, the photoreceptor here, and you know, converts that light back into electricity. Now, maybe some of you don't have the faintest idea what's going on. I don't know what that guy did. He's up there, he pushes some buttons, and there's light coming out of the tube, and it goes right through his brain, and it goes all the way across his. He hits his glass eyeball, and there's music coming out of his nose. You know, I don't know how he did that. But any one of you could come up here and push that button, make that music. You know, you don't have to understand how it works, but you must meet the right conditions. Right conditions. Okay? If I weren't lined up with that photocell, we wouldn't hear a thing. When the Apollo one of the crews, maybe it was Apollo 9, I can't remember. Apollo 11, maybe. Somebody put a reflective mirror on the surface of the moon. It was called a corner cube mirror. It had 100 cells, little mirrors on it, about one cubic foot or 1 foot square. A corner cube mirror looks like the corner of a box. Now, those of you that remember your physics, there's something called the angle of incidence, okay? The angle of incidence is this perpendicular line that comes to the center. That's your reference point. Let's pretend my hand is a mirror. Here's the line coming in. You guys will get this even on SAT tests. They ask this. Don't tell anybody, but I'm telling you, okay? Line comes in. A light beam coming from the side at a certain angle will hit the mirror, and it will bounce off at the same angle of incidence that it hit the mirror with. So if it comes in at a 45-degree angle relative to the perpendicular, it's going to bounce out this way at a 45-degree angle relative to the perpendicular. Okay? Angle of incidence. A corner cube mirror is not like that. If you had a laser beam and you hit a corner cube mirror, it would bounce right back in your face. Okay? No matter where you're standing, that beam will bounce right back to you. That's the advantage of a corner cube mirror. So you could have a signal going off to the side like this, and it'll come right back to you. Another one from over there, if somebody hit that mirror from over there, it would go right back to them. So they had this tuned laser aimed at the moon. By the time that laser spot got to the moon, it was maybe 1 mile or 1.5 miles in diameter. That's all the further it would diffuse, because it's coherent light. And here's this 1 mile or 1.5 mile diameter spotlight going back and forth across the moon's surface to find out where they landed. Remember, Neil Armstrong, he ran that lunar module, the LEM, Lunar Excursion Module, they used to call it. But once it planted itself, it didn't excursion anywhere. It just sat there. They had to bring the buggy up, later on to go running around. But he landed. He had only 30 seconds of fuel left, because where he was coming down was a big boulder field. And if you land on the boulder on one of those landing legs and the module tips sideways, they would have been stranded on the moon. So he had to fly that thing until he found a flat area to come down on. It took them 4.5 hours to find out where they landed with that little spotlight. All right? Now, you don't have to understand something, use it, but you must meet the proper conditions. When the Apollo 13 crew was on the way to the moon, they're the ones that had the service module rupture in the oxygen tank. They almost died out in space. And there were Europeans. We were over in Europe giving these lectures with the military, and some of the civilians came in and they said, "We are praying for your astronauts." Because, that could have been the first team that we lost in space. And there was some skeptic on the outside of the crowd. Said, "Wait a minute, how could they be praying for astronauts? How could you be praying for astronauts at the same time? Wouldn't things get all mixed up? What if there were 1,000 people all praying at the same time in 12 different languages? Wouldn't things get all mixed up?" And we said, "Look, sir, you don't have to understand how something works. I don't understand prayer. I've never been to seminary in my life, I'm not a preacher. I'm just a mad scientist. God had mercy on my soul and changed my life, but I'm no preacher. I love the Bible, love to read the Bible and stuff. But I don't understand how this works. But I know you've got to meet the right conditions." And he says, "Wait a minute, I figured anytime you Christians talk to God, he heard you." "Oh, really? Is that what you think?" How many of you have ever read the Bible and you don't understand what it says? Maybe it's because you're reading somebody else's mail. Ever thought about that? You wouldn't understand what he's talking about. He's talking about things for his children, to strengthen his children and tell them how to behave and all that kind of thing. And somebody that's not part of the family reading that, there are things in the Bible that you will understand. God's going to make sure that his word gets out and you have an opportunity of becoming more aware of what it says and maybe responding to God's Spirit somehow. I don't know how that works. Next time you have to read the Bible, ask God to help you understand what you're reading and come across those passages that tell you how you can be adopted as his child. As God works in your life and fixes your rebellion and all the stuff that's there, draws you to him. We're told, the Bible tells us his Spirit will draw the world to himself. So, and again, I don't understand how this works. All I know is that once I was a bad guy and lost, and now I'm saved from all the junk and the things that would have happened to me at judgment because God told me that somebody else took the rap for me. Jesus died in my place, so I don't have to. That's good news, right? So, that's what it's all about, and the data's right there in the book. But if you don't understand it and you want to know, there's an interesting verse in the Bible that says, even if you are willing to do my will, I will show you the truth, whether it's the truth or not. So God's looking for a willing heart, somebody that wants to know the truth and understand these things. And, if that's you or if that were me one time, you'll get more information and things will start to make sense and you'll have an opportunity of understanding what's involved really. So that's really where it's at. Now, when we talk about light, there are a lot of different ways of creating light. Now, we can use the simplest method we use, of course, is the bonfire method. Take one of these things, this little light stick here, and light it up. And the friction causes the phosphorus on the tip to burst into flame, and they raise the temperature of the wood to 451 Fahrenheit. It begins combining with oxygen molecules, and it begins to burn as well, giving off a little bit of light. Now, if we had all the lights off in here, there'd be a little bit light here. We could see our way around, sort of. But let me try something else here. I've got, this is one of my backup systems here for controlling things. I'm going to wave the match in front of that white tube up there. And that tube is a phototransistor, sort of like that, only that's a photocell. This is a transistor. Okay. Ever turn lights off with a match? Interesting. I can run any circuit here. Here's another circuit I can use there. In case my wireless unit malfunctions, I've got proximity switches and pressure switches and all kinds of photo switches. This is a photo switch. Watch that post there in the center of the room. I'm going to drop this match in front of that white tube. See that? What's so funny? I'll get that fixed later, I hope. Those of you near this thing here, I covered it up because I didn't want you to get nervous. But on the other side of that gray thing there, it says danger high voltage, right? So this thing blows up once in a while, but it's nothing serious, just an arm or a leg, and you can grow another one maybe. They make more kids every year anyway, so. Now, anyway, that's a messy way of making light. It causes all kind of smoke and fire and burns houses down and such. So we don't want to do that. These should not be called light bulbs. Those ought to be called heat bulbs. Why? Because 96% of the energy we're dumping into those things is being wasted as heat. We're only getting 4% energy out of those things for light. Right? It's very inefficient. Now this has interesting economic possibilities because next time your light bill is $100, you got to pay it once a month or once every 2 months or whatever. You go into the city hall or wherever they take your money and put the thing down. Circle the word light with a red ink. It's a light bill. And make sure they understand it. Is this my light bill? Yeah. Yes, it's your light bill. Okay? $100, right? Okay. Put $4 on the counter and walk out the door. Tell them you're not going to pay for the heat that they wasted designing the fool things. You're going to pay for the light use. It's right there, light bill, Now, don't do that till I get out of town next week, all right? They'll be after me. But that's an inefficient way of making light. Now, in God's creation, He's got enough power. He can plop a nuclear furnace out there, this cosmic ray projector we call our sun. That makes light, either by gravity contraction or nuclear furnaces. They're not precisely sure because we're getting data from both of those that would, go either way. But anyway, it's making light, okay? But we can't do that because you get a little close to that and you get cooked. What about these little guys? And I think you've seen them around here. They're called fireflies or lightning bugs or something. You have those around here? Okay, great. For years, the scientists were trying to figure out how do they do that. You know? Actually, the one that's doing that, the female, her entire abdomen lights up. And they use cold chemicals and cold light to do that. Otherwise, they'd burn their tails off, you know, so that's not good. And besides, they found out it's a mating call. Each species of firefly has a different flash code. And as they're flashing that light, you'll notice the wing beats increase, and they go to a higher altitude to be seen by a greater distance. And then the male firefly, I've only seen one male firefly my whole life. I love to watch fireflies, but I've only seen one. They have a light organ that's about the size of the head of a pin, if that, on their abdomen as well. And the only time I ever saw a male firefly was when they were linked up with a female firefly, flying in tandem and doing data transfer. Okay. So anyway, that's what was going on. Now, scientists were trying to figure out how do they do it? How do they make that light? How do they make the light? And they would pay kids, and I was one of the dumb kids, you know, out there collecting fireflies. I think we had to get a dozen to get a quarter of a cent or something like that. I mean, it was big money to me in that day. But they would send this in, and they'd analyze it, and they figured out what it was, what those chemicals were. And I've got those chemicals right up here in the platform. And we're going to make some liquid light using these chemicals. Now, for us, it's going to be called chemiluminescence. With living things, it's called bioluminescence, life light. But this is chemical light. All right? Now, incidentally, they have found, what verified this about the mating call thing, they found a firefly in South America. This little lady goes out on a limb Friday, Saturday night, puts her tail in the air, starts flashing the code. And along comes a teenage mutant ninja firefly, you know, Oh, I'm a tough dude, see? Everybody's supposed to like me because I'm a tough dude, I'm cool. And then he sees this lady talking to him. Oh, I recognize that code. And he flies down, and you know what she does? She kills him and eats him. It's like that. Yeah. And then another teenage mutant ninja firefly, he sees it. Oh, she changes her code. You know, let's get some other sucker, you know. And so he's coming along. His parents have never told him what to do with all these feelings he's got. I'm going to explode if I don't talk to somebody about this. She's thought, oh, she likes me. I'm going down there. He goes down. You know what she does to him? Kills him and eats him too. Right? So, all I'm going to say tonight, this is a G-rated program. Young people, stay away from flashing lights. Right? You will get tricked, and it'll destroy your life. So just don't mess with that. Now, we got the stuff right up here to make light. There are two different ways we can make light. One way is to use electricity. So let me put this stuff away a minute here. We can use electricity. This is my pickle electrocutor. I'm going to electrocute a pickle. This is tied right to the 110 volts, you know, in the wall socket. I've got a red button here. You always got to have a red button. Now, if there were numbers up here counting down from 10, this would be a bomb, you know, but it's not a bomb. This is just an electrocutor for pickles. When I push this button, electricity is going to go up in one probe and jump across to the other probe. But when I push this button, nothing's happening, right? At least nothing visible is happening. The current is going up the probe. But air is a good insulator. It can't jump across. The electricity can't jump across the air. It needs help. It needs a carrier to carry it across. Now, you could use a wire and allow the copper, electrons in the copper to flow and change places and bump along, you know, and send that electricity out, the other electron out the other end. But we're going to use a pickle, okay? We're going to use pickle juice. We're going to use, let's see if I can catch this guy. They always try to get away from me. Okay, if I sneak up on him there, let's see, okay, there's a big one right down there. I missed. No, not me, take the other guy. I got him. Okay, here we are. Looks like he's wetting his pants, he's so scared. Let me get this thing out of here. Okay. Now, I'm going to lay him down there because he's so startled he's not moving. I'm going to probe him with my electrocutor, just like, hey, I bet that hurt. Okay, now. All right, now what we're going to do, I'm going to push this button. The electricity will start flowing, but not at first. First you might see a little smoke, which you can see. You won't see the steam, but then a little bit later on you'll see the water vapor, which you can see. And then you should see an arcing as the electrons start jumping up and down in their orbits. And then when they fall back to their original orbit, they give off an arc, a light, basically light. And the current will jump across, okay? So I'll get it started, and then we'll turn off the lights and see it. So let's have a countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Energize. It's energized. It's vibrating in my hand. Smoke. Whoa! There we are. An electric pickle communicator. Ta-da! There we are. Glowing pickles in the dark. Okay? Now, I'm going to send you some Morse code, folks. What is this? SOS, very good. Save our sauce. That's what we got here, okay? Electric pickle. Let's see if we can set off the fire alarm here. Now, that's just one way of making light. It's kind of crude, but it works, okay? So with chemiluminescence, I've got the chemicals up here. Let's have a short chemistry class. Let me roll this drum out here, and I'll use this as my table. Okay. This flask has something in it we call dihydrogen monoxide. Anybody know what that stuff is? What's dihydrogen? H2 and oxygen. Well, it's water. Very good. Okay, that's a chemical term for water. Dihydrogen monoxide. So if you're in chemistry class, ask your teacher, "Ma'am, sir, may I have a glass of dihydrogen monoxide, please?" If they look at you with a kind of a puzzled look, change teachers. All right? Okay. Now to that I've added some H2O2. What's that? Whoop, careful, not water, H2O2. Hydrogen peroxide. Somebody's got a blonde girlfriend over there. Very good. We say hydrogen peroxide, a scientist's gift to the ladies. Suicide blondes died by their own hand. You know, Bob Hope told me that joke would work, but it doesn't. Get my money back. Okay, to that stuff I have added some K3FeCN6. Okay, what's K? Potassium. What's Fe? Iron. In a formula, depending upon the valence, you have ferric or ferrous. This is ferric in that sense. And the Cn, capital C, capital N, in parentheses. So it's a special molecule of carbon and nitrogen. What is that? Cyanide. Very good. Cyanide. Don't see that, man, if you have a headache, okay? Poor Tylenol Corporation. Now, don't drink this stuff, okay? Actually, cyanide powder is white, so this is kind of a gold rust color, there's different formulation. Anyway, here's another flask. In this flask, to the water, we've added some NaOH. Na, sodium, OH, hydroxide, sodium hydroxide. So it's very caustic. It's like Drano, okay? Each holes in organic complexes. To that, I've added some 5-amino, 2,3-dihydro-1,4-latazine-dione. Class dismissed. Okay. That's actually the organic chemical that we would get from fireflies, called luminol in the industry. So here's my flask, my Florence flask. What I'm going to do is pour these chemicals together and combine them. The peroxide is going to be my oxidizing agent for the organic chemical here, that luminol stuff. And we should be able to observe the phenomenon known as chemiluminescence. All right? Let me take the stoppers off. And I'll turn the lights off so we can see them, because it's not that bright, but you just watch where you saw me last and we'll dump these together. Whoa. There we are. a bottle of liquid bug juice. A lot of fireflies died for you folks tonight, so I hope you appreciate their sacrifice. And we could change the color of this by adding different metallic ions, and we could get it to glow the rest of the evening, of course, but that would kind of mess up other experiments in the dark, so we just let it burn itself out pretty quickly there. Liquid light. Okay. I mean, this could be so bright you could actually read the front page of your newspaper with it. All right? And if you're out in the ocean, you're in ocean travel, you look at the stern of the ship, you might see the fluorescing bioluminescence from the little critters in the ocean. So they get stirred up like that, and they get excited and give off all that stuff. They think they're being courted by their mates, you know. So, chemiluminescence, light, in that case, from chemicals. Or, what we can do is use electricity again to activate something like phosphors. Now, this is just a glorified night light. Let me turn the room lights off and turn this thing on like that. All right? We're using electricity just plugged directly into the wall socket. Just like you do with your night lights. You plug them in, and the electricity excites the electrons. They jump up to a high orbit and then crash down, cascade back, and they give off a quanta of light. In this case, this particular phosphor gives us this lime green color. And it's very, very low power, so you can leave that thing on for years, and it'll only cost you a few cents to run that. A lot of different ways of making light. In fact, we could make light with this thing over here. This is our laser. There's something interesting about laser light. Something interesting about light, period. Did you know that light is invisible? You can't see light. Light's invisible, but it makes other things visible. There's light in that source. There's light here, don't see it. There's light here, can't see it. There's light over here, you can't see it. And then it hits something, and my hand interferes with the transmission of the electromagnetic radiation, causes a disturbance pattern in the force. You know? And it reflects that disturbance pattern back to your eye, and you can see this, and you would recognize that as a person's hand, or whatever the object is. Okay? But light's invisible. So you need something in the light to reflect the light to other things. And if this is invisible, now, you know, people say, well, how do you see that? Well, I've got a can of, what is this stuff? Potpourri. Okay. Let's spray, we'll spray some pot in there, you know. And as long as you guys in the front row don't inhale, you might be president someday, so. Whoop. Apologies to the Democrats here tonight. The two of you in the back row. Okay, I'm going to spray this stuff. I think, I got some left. I'm going to spray it into the beam, and we should be able to see the beam only because it's striking something that reflects it back to the eye. And then we can follow where that beam goes, all right? Let's try it. There it is. Okay, isn't that cool? Now, let's use my, where's my other laser back here, this lime green one that's bright. I'll turn this thing on. We'll spray it up in the air, and then I'll try to find it. We might be able to still see it. See, there's the beam. Isn't that cool? That's cool. So I love lasers, you know. Let's really get everybody to be president here. Okay. There you are. This is how Disney and some of these, I've got a 2-watt laser back at Los Angeles in my lab, and it is capable of drawing pictures on the sides of mountains because, you know, motion pictures. Let me turn this thing off. We don't need that one anymore. But you cannot see the light unless you've got something in the light to reflect the character of the light back to the person that's watching it. Now, this is obvious overtones from what we were talking about earlier. The character of the Lord is able to be reflected through your character because you have allowed the light of his countenance, we'll say, his light to reflect through you as his child. So when people see you, they would see someone that represents the character of the Lord. And many times when people come to faith and their life changes, their friends say, there's something different about you. What happened? And then you have an opportunity of telling them, I used to, my life was all messed up, and I didn't think anybody cared. And then I heard that there is somebody that cared about me, cared enough about me to die so I wouldn't have to. And you can tell somebody about how you trusted the Lord in your life, and how God called you and brought you into his family. So just amazing opportunities you have. But the one thing we got to realize, with this laser, we can communicate information over a laser beam. We don't have to understand how it works, but you've got to meet those right conditions. And this guy in Europe that said, I figured any time you talk to God, he heard you, right? Well, something, gentlemen, if you don't treat your wife in a proper way, the Bible says your prayers will be hindered. They may not even get out of the roof of your house. Because you mess with that lady, the lady is very special in God's eyes. Now, the Bible calls them a weaker vessel. They have usually less muscle mass and all, but that's not really the whole point. The point is, when they were talking about weaker vessels, they were talking about very beautifully carved alabaster marble perfume boxes. Alabaster marble is metamorphosed limestone. You heat it up hot enough, and it'll change into this alabaster marble. It's translucent. You can hold a match next to it, and the light just permeates into the marble. Beautiful stuff. And they would carve these things, and you'd have this beautiful, very delicate, but it's made of stone, so it's hard as rock, but it's delicate, and they call it a weaker vessel. And you would very carefully carry this thing, one hand around the neck and one hand under the base, from one room and put it on the mantle in the other room or whatever. And we're told, be careful with this woman you've entrusted your life to, because she's delicate. You can harm them with words. Women are better at communicating than guys are. Guys are visually communicating. We see a hot rod car or something, and we'll pay attention to it. But ladies, they're better at communication. And you can hurt a woman by using harsh words, talking to them, and wound their spirit. But a guy, man, you see your best friend, hey, you ugly turkey, is that your neck, or did your neck throw up? Is that your face? Whoa. And they'll pat you on the back, you're... And we horse around like that. But guy, you say that to your wife, bang, boom, off you go. So don't do that. But the point is, we communicate in different ways, and we're to be very careful, very gentle with this lady that can be hurt by words. Now, it's true, it is impossible for a man to understand a woman, all right? You really can't. Biophysiologically, you cannot understand a woman. You are wired differently than a woman. The babies that are going to be boys, the first few weeks of the gestation period, the organs are starting to get arranged and in place, and the heart starts pumping, and then the brain starts getting wired. Now, for the next 9 months, 250,000 new neurons in the brain are going to be created every hour for 9 months. I think it's every hour, might be even every minute. Just amazing stuff going on in there. 9 months. If the baby's going to be a boy, a very powerful hormone at very weak levels begins to flow through the boy. It's called testosterone. It's not the same load you get dumped on when you're 12 or 13 years old, because that drives you nuts. But it's a very delicate load at first. The babies are going to be boys. This stuff starts flowing to them. As soon as it gets to the brain, it burns open some of the connections in the corpus callosum, that big bundle of nerves between the two halves of the brain. And those nerves are never reconnected. Millions of them are lost. And when boys are born, we're born basically half-witted. I didn't want to say that, but it's true. So, we can't use both halves of our brain as efficiently as a woman can. They can be logical and emotional at the same time. They can integrate the data and see things from a bird's eye view, bringing all the data together, and we are so, guys are so focused. I mean, we're so busy, we're going to go out there and get the food for the family and bring it back home and then work and get the house built, things like that. We're made that way. We're just wired differently. In fact, I've got a little clip here. I forgot to show you the other clip. Let me show you this one first because it's pertinent to the subject. They're going to turn on the projector thing here. And let me find the one I want here. Yeah, this one. And I'm going to turn that off there and bring this up to big size like that. And that's plugged in. Okay. Oh, I got to turn these lights off.
We're going to start discussing men's brains, women's brains, and how they're very different from each other. Now, I want to start with men's brains. All right? Now, men's brains are very unique. Men's brains are made up of little boxes. And we have a box for everything. We've got a box for the car. We've got a box for the money. We've got a box for the job. We've got a box for you. We've got a box for the kids. We've got a box for your mother somewhere in the basement. We got boxes everywhere. And the rule is, the boxes don't touch. When a man discusses a particular subject, we go to that particular box, we pull that box out, we open the box, we discuss only what is in that box. All right? And then we close the box and put it away, being very, very careful not to touch any other boxes. Now, women's brains are very, very different from men's brains. Women's brains are made up of a big ball of wire. And everything is connected to everything. The money's connected to the car, and the car's connected to your job, and your kids are connected to your mother, and everything's connected to everything. It's like... It's like the internet superhighway, okay? And it's all driven by energy that we call emotion. It's one of the reasons why women tend to remember everything. Because if you take an event and you connect it to an emotion, it burns in your memory and you can remember it forever. The same thing happens for men. It just doesn't happen very often because, quite frankly, we don't care. Women tend to care about everything. And she just loves it. Okay? Now, men, we have a box in our brain that most women are not aware of. This particular box has nothing in it. In fact, we call it the nothing box. And of all the boxes a man has in his brain, the nothing box is our favorite box. If a man has a chance, he'll go to his nothing box every time. That's why a man can do something seemingly completely brain dead for hours on end. You know, like fishing. Now, they've actually measured this. The University of Pennsylvania a couple of years ago did a study and discovered that men have the ability to think about absolutely nothing and still breathe. You know, they connected all the wires and stuff like that and watched the brain activity, then all of a sudden, I think he's dead. Huh? You know, women can't do it. They can't do it. Their minds never stop. And they don't understand the nothing box. And it drives them crazy. Because nothing drives a woman more crazy or makes her feel more irritated than to witness a man doing nothing.
Okay. Hey guys, I don't know why you're laughing, because this is going to come back and haunt you. We'll get that sound fixed for tomorrow night. I've got my favorite video clip that we'll show you tomorrow. I just forgot to show it because you guys are having so much fun with my jokes. I just forgot what I was saying. We'll show it tomorrow night. But the point is, the way you communicate with a lady, you have to be very careful about your words, because they have the emotional component and all that kind of thing. The Bible says, if we walk in the light as he is in the light, then we have fellowship one with another. That's a conditional statement. If we walk in the light, then we have the fellowship. Walking in the light means you're reflecting the Lord's character. And when you do that, the people around you will see something different about you compared to the average person in the world. All right? And here's a simple demonstration. Let me turn these lights off, and I'll turn this one on. Here's a light source, attempting to illuminate my path. And I can see on the floor, I got to watch out that don't fall in the holes and stuff and trip on the cords. But if I turn my back on the light, I create my own shadow by rejecting the light. And that darkness that I've created, I can fall flat on my face because I can't see where I'm going. That's why the Bible talks about repentance. Turn around, go the other way from the way we've been going, get back to the center of the light. When you're right in the center of the light, under the street lights out here, whatever, there's no shadow at all when you're standing in the presence of the light. No shadow at all. But you start walking away from the light, the further you get away, the longer the shadow, the greater the darkness. And what's really scary, what's you will blend right into the dark world that does not have the light of the Lord, and you will look no different than the dark world because you're so far away, or I'd be so far away from the light source. No more reflecting of God's character. That's why we want to be close to the light source, in the presence of the light. There are two kinds of insects we could talk about. We could talk about the kind that love the light, moths and butterflies flying around the light. What's the insect that runs away from the lights when you turn the lights on in the dark? A cockroach. Would you rather be a cockroach or a moth or a butterfly? See? I'd rather be the moth and butterfly. So this issue of light, no wonder the Lord used that. There's so much there. In fact, we could talk some about color as well. Let's wrap up with these demonstrations. First of all, there's no such thing as white light. These are not white lights. Secondly, there's no such thing as a white surface. Back in the retina of your eye, you have two types of light receptors, rods and cones. The rods will tell you whether or not electromagnetic radiation is striking the eye. You can see frequencies between 400 and 780 nanometers. That's in the visible portion of the spectrum. But the rods will only tell you whether the lights are on or not. It's called luminance, how bright the light is. The cone cells will tell you what frequency of light is hitting your eye. And you have three kinds of cone cells. One is sensitive to red light, another sensitive to green, and another sensitive to blue. Those are the three primary colors for light. The reason they call them primaries is because you can make all the other colors of light from those three primaries. It's an analog system. You can have a little bit of red, lots of blue, and a little bit of green. Or lots of green, less red, and less blue. Tomorrow we'll talk some about that. You can see over 22 million different hues, different colors, just with those 3 receptors in your eye for light. It's an additive phenomenon. Red, green, and blue are the primaries. When you signal the brain, red, green, and blue all at the same time, what color does your brain call it? It calls it white, but it's not white, it's red, green, and blue. But your brain interprets it as white light. Now with pigments and paints, that's a subtractive phenomenon. So it subtracts the frequencies of light and only reflects certain ones back to the eye. So those primaries are almost the same, but there's one that's different. So you have red, blue, and yellow for paints. So you can make all the other color of paint from those 3 primaries. When you mix all the paint primaries together, it subtracts all the colors out of the light, and you have a dark brown, black color, the absence of light, right? So I can show you that this really is true. Here's a flashlight and a drill with a filter disc on the front. It's got the primary color filters in it, so red, green, and blue, right? And we can flash red, green, and blue up on the screen. Turn these lights off. Right now we call that white, but it's not. Let's filter it out. Green colors, red, and blue. All right? Let's increase the speed a little bit, because we're firing up all 3 of those light receptors right now. Let's go a little faster, a little faster, a little faster. You still see the colors there. Let's go a little faster. Let's go up to full speed. Whoa! What happened to the red, green, and blue? No, it's still there. See it up there? In fact, you shake your head back and forth and look at that spot. See that? Red, green, and blue. Blink your eyes if you got a stiff neck. And we can slow it down back to the red, green, blue colors. Okay? The colors in the light. There's no such thing as white light. And I told you folks this morning. Obviously some of you did not listen. Because you showed up with what you thought was a white shirt or a white blouse. But it's not. It's red, green, and blue, really. You tell that to your science teacher and watch what happens. Unless you're up to speed on that. The color is in the light. That's what I want you to remember. Okay? Now, depending upon the type of frequency that is hitting an object, it will respond in different ways. We've got 2 experiments left. One is on the back of that painting over there. Now I had to face it against the wall because it is very bright. The colors are so bright, I probably should have issued sunglasses to everybody, but I don't have enough. So I'll carefully turn it around. And we've got, my favorite colors on this thing are the purples and the blues. Look at those colors there. Are these something? You're not impressed. It's purples and, oh, gross. Let's turn off these room lights and see. Oh, that's better. Okay. Now, what we've done here, we are shining long-wave ultraviolet light up onto this phosphor painting. Each of those colors represent a different type of phosphor. This long-wave ultraviolet light peaks at 360 nanometers. Your eye is in tune with 400 to 700. 360 is too short a wavelength. It will not activate the retina. In fact, the light is absorbed in the lens in the cornea of your eye. It doesn't even get back to the retina. But there are phosphors here that are sensitive to and respond to this energy of light. And they reflect that particular frequency back to your eye. After the electrons fall back to their orbits, they give off that quanta of light. Not ultraviolet anymore, but now it's in the visible portion of the spectrum. This is the way our Creator sees you and me, who are His children. A beautiful, completed, glowing gem. Now, when we had the room lights on and we looked at it with our normal eyes, I mean, that's not impressive. I mean, that's like a scruffy nerve herder, I'm not impressed with this guy. But we look at the outside. God looks at the heart and the potential that a person has as they trust him with their life. And once you become a child of God, we're told that he will give gifts to his children. He gives you spiritually energized gifts. Everybody gets a different one, and sometimes more than one, but most often just a gift of some sort. Maybe it's teaching. Maybe it's being nice to people. Maybe it's making a lot of money and not caring about it and giving it to people that need the funds, the poor and the missionaries and whatever. God has a lot of different gifts. Gifts of mercy, empathetic relationship with someone, so you can they cry and you empathize with that and you comfort them. But we don't see those things because we have ordinary. The artist that painted this needed a new set of eyes. And they gave him a new set of eyes that could look in the ultraviolet. And the room lights were turned off, and then he could see this painting and paint it properly. God can see the end from the beginning. God is not trapped in the third dimension like we are. We're living in this linear function, it's called. You can see the back of the person's head in front of you. You can learn about history from behind you, what happened, but nobody can know the future unless God gifts them with this foresight and these Old Testament prophets and stuff. So, God's out here. We're standing here. We can't see the end from the beginning. But God sees us like we're going to be someday. And that's how he could even stand to talk to us and love us. Because the Lord has already taken care of the sin problem, that God has to turn his back on sin. So he turned his back on the Lord when he was on the cross. And imagine what that was like for him. We can't imagine what that was like. First time in the history of the histories, which was before history, eternity, God the Father separated himself from the Son because he was so disgusting with the sin of the world dumped on his back. And the Lord cried out in his humanity, "My God, why have you forsaken me?" Just imagine. Nobody can imagine what that was like. That was the suffering on the cross. Not the whipping and the slashing. Oh, that was bad enough. But there were 10,000 people crucified at the same time the Lord was. And they had, they died a physical death and were ripped. And they usually lasted for a week or so. And the family would bring them food and stuff. They'd leave them hanging there as a warning to other people. You commit a capital crime, this is what's going to happen to you. But they were surprised when the Lord died right away. Those professional assassins, those crucifiers in the Romans, they were designed to bring the suffering to a peak and then let it last for a long, long time. That was the suffering the Lord did, the separation from God. He experienced hell so we wouldn't have to. And that's the wonder of his love. While we were yet sinners, Christ died for us, we're told. And the color that's in the light, Jesus said, "I've come that you might have life and you might have it more abundantly." Imagine going through life and not even being able to see color. Some people are colorblind. In fact, I have a device up here. I talked to some young people before the program wearing certain colored shirts. Will you come up now, please? I had a red one there and a blue one there and a green and an orange and yeah. Okay, you guys stand right. All right, let's see. Let's get these cords out of the way here. So somebody stand right in front of that black box down there, if you would. Get nice and close together. So right up here in line. Okay, come a little closer together. Okay, now, if I do this right, I can make all these clothes the same color. Okay? Let's see if I can, maybe I can do this, if I do this right. Okay, take a deep breath and don't move. Don't move. Okay, look out this way. Whoa! Whoa! What on earth is going on here? You guys okay over here? Okay. Tell you what, ladies, we're going to stand on this side. That way if they get hurt, we won't get hurt, right? Okay. All right. Now, if I do this right, I can make these all the same color. Okay. Okay. Watch carefully. Here we go. Same color, aren't they? Of course they'd be black. What do you expect? Now wait. Somebody says, wait a minute. Do you have any light that doesn't have any color to it? Maybe we have. Let's turn the lights off and we'll open this one up. Oh, gross. Now, I don't even remember what color you were. Or you call, no. And you look like you threw up in your shirt. What do you guys, now this lady you were supposed to be green, but you look the same as the guy in the end that was, you Obi-Wan Kenobi over there, okay? Here, maybe this will help us out. I've got a piece of cardboard here that's got some, see if I can find it. Okay. Sir, you hang on to that one. And young lady, let me find one for you. You hang on to that one. Okay, what color are those pieces of cardboard? Anybody, what do you think? Black and white, yellow and white. It looks like it to me. Whoops. Interesting. How'd that happen? Let's try another one. Here's another sheet of multicolors. Okay, over there. You hang on to that one. Okay, what color are those? I have no idea. Now, what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 guys and ladies, and I got 5. Now you can, these are little flip books, you know. You just spin them like this and there's a moving picture in there. So you can trade them with anybody if you want to. You probably want Pocahontas, right? Okay. I don't know what this is. You want this? Lion King? Okay. Fair enough. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, great. I got an extra one for tomorrow night. Give me a hand, folks. Good job, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. What, Mom? I'm up on stage. Okay. When light strikes an object, 2 things can happen. Frequencies can be absorbed or rejected by an object. All right? Those 2 things. That's it. The red, green, and blue light frequencies in these light, what frequency strikes the cardboard and is rejected by the cardboard? What color is that? Red is rejected. So it signals the receptors on your eye that say red, so this is red. But it's not. What colors are absorbed by the cardboard? Blue and green. All right? So technically, this is a blue-green piece of cardboard. Now, I made that statement one time at a community, and the kid came the next night. He says, hey, on the way home last night, I went through a red light, and I tried to tell the cop it was blue-green, but he wouldn't believe it. And I wonder why. More money for the policeman's ball. Now, what we're going to do, turn off these lights. This light up here is what's called monochromatic light, one-color light. There are only 2 narrow bands in the yellow portion of the spectrum, and this piece of cardboard has no characteristic to reflect yellow light. It only reflects red frequencies. So it absorbs everything else. And we would call it black, or depending upon the luminance level, gray, but it would look black, because there's no red frequencies there. Then when we turn the room lights on, red, green, and blue light, the red is rejected, blue and green are absorbed. So, if you don't remember anything else tonight, this is blue-green. Okay? The colors in the light. We have an incredible world that's been created for us. I often ask students sometimes, why do you suppose there's so many different colors of flowers? Oh, so that the bees can be attracted to the flowers and make the honey. No. Bees don't see invisible. They look in the ultraviolet. When the bee looks at a flower, they see dark purple lines pointing to the highest concentration of nectar. It's a targeting system that God wired into the bee brain to find that nectar. Those flowers were designed by God so that when you come out of your nothing box, guys, and you mess up, you got something you can buy that maybe will cheer up your wife. So try it sometime, maybe it works. I don't know. So, it's an amazing creation God has, and we're going to talk more about it tomorrow, the way things are designed, our sense perception, how we can't trust our senses. We're going to put these goggles on somebody and throw those beach balls at them. Some of you saw us do that this morning. We got floating metal tomorrow, chemicals changing colors at predetermined times, and optical delusions, I like to call them, stuff that you just can't believe is happening because it's impossible, but it's happening right in front of your eyes. And we'll show you some of those illusionist clips as well as my favorite video. I just didn't show it today, but I'll show it to you tomorrow. So I'll just close in a quick prayer, and then we'll turn it back to Pastor Jim, and he'll close and dismiss in case you have any announcements, all right? Lord, we thank you for this creation that you've made, the variety and the wonderful mysteries that we can discover on occasion. Thank you for your patience in our lives and the mercy you've shown us, giving us an opportunity of hearing more tonight maybe about some of your creation and some of the truths in the Scripture. Might you impress it on our hearts, help us to rethink our position sometimes and realize that we're not perfect, we've made mistakes, everybody knows that. But you've given us an option, an out, by already dying on the cross in our place. And your Spirit will draw us to you, help us to understand what's involved here, and we could be adopted as your children. Make that real in our lives. If we have any questions, anybody's questions, give them the courage and the interest to talk to the pastors here and the staff and learn about that. We thank you again in Jesus' name and for his sake and glory. Amen.